It's so good to see so many of you, either in person here in the sanctuary or in the chapel or outside or even online. Um, as you know, we're celebrating 5 years of our anniversary, but it's actually, we're celebrating a little bit early because next week we're going to have our missions conference. And so we're a little bit early, but that's okay. And today, our time today is really all about stories. It's really about what God has been doing in your life, in my life, in the life of New Vine Community Church. It's really about God being our story maker and also our storyteller. You know, each one of us has a story. It's a unique story. My story is not the same as your story, and your story is not the same as your neighbor's story. But in God's awesomeness, in his wisdom, in his infinite might, he is our story maker, story writer, and storyteller. So today it's really all about stories. And we really celebrate and give thanks to what God has done among us as a New Vine Church community. You know, more than 5 years ago, God started birthing this story in the hearts of Pastor Ted and Sandy. And a group of about 30 of us from our San Jose church began to pray. We didn't know where the church was going to be. We didn't know who was going to come. We didn't know really that much, but we just trusted that the Lord was writing the story of a brand new church, a brand new community, a brand new family. And over the last 5 years, in fact, this is what God has done. If you look around the room, if you look outside, if you saw the pictures on the slideshow, it's truly a remarkable work of God, how he has called different people from different walks of life, from different countries, from different languages, from different social economic classes to be a part of his body. Joined by the love of Jesus, each one of us purchased by his death and work on the cross so that we can be brothers and sisters, so that we can be a part of God's family. So today is really all about stories. It's all about celebrating what he has done, what he is doing, and what he will continue to do. And I'm not going to be telling stories today. I'm actually going to be asking questions to our panelists who will be telling and sharing some of their stories. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Jenn and Alan, Quyen and Andrew, and Sapna to come up to the stage and to join me to grab a mic, to grab some chairs. And we're just going to spread ourselves across the stage. Maybe couples, you can sit together if that would be better. And then we can, maybe you guys can go over there, yeah. And then Jenn and Alan, yep, perfect. And then grab a mic. And then, can you share one? Yes, all right, perfect. All right, so, you know, this is actually amazing that we're all here together. It's actually very exciting. I don't think I could sleep very well last night, just anticipating what was going to happen today. But you know, when New Vine started, and as our group was praying about what this church would be about, what the Lord would place in our heart, three phrases came to mind. The first being ordinary people, and then a real faith. And the third phrase was a meaningful community. And that was really our prayer for New Vine, that God would call us as ordinary people, but to have a real faith in Jesus, not in ourselves, not in each other, but really a real faith founded on Jesus, the solid rock. And that he would call us together and be a meaningful community, a family. And as we have seen, and as some of you hopefully have experienced, and as we'll hear, that I think the Lord has really answered our prayers for all three of those things. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we're pretty ordinary people, right? I mean, Sapna, you were born in India, but then moved to Singapore, lived there for many years. Jen, you grew up in the Bay Area, and then Alan, you grew up in California, Mojave Desert, and then sometime in Massachusetts, right? And then we've got some East Coast people, right? So Andrew, you grew up in Pennsylvania, right? And then Quinn, you grew up in New Jersey. And I mean, pretty ordinary people. And we're. I don't think any of us are royalty, right? No, at least I don't think we are. I mean, we're royalty of the Most High God, yes, but earthly royalty, no, right? I don't think we come from necessarily very what is it? Well-known families, perhaps, probably. I mean, so ordinary people, right? Just regular people, right? And then the phrase really, well, even before I get into the other phrase, I want to kind of just start by asking some of us how we first heard about New Vine and how the Lord led us to New Vine. Maybe Jen and Alan, you can start and you can share with us, how did you find out about New Vine and when did you start attending?
Yeah, so can you hear me? Okay.
Can we hear her?
No? Closer? That's about as close as I can get. No?
Can we turn her up,
Testing?
please? Okay, there we go.
All right. So we had been to a number of different churches over the years, living in different cities, but knowing that none of them were, permanent, because we were also not permanent in those, cities. And we, then when we moved here to Mountain View, we bought a house in 2014 ish, and we had actually been going to church off and on with my family, but way out in Concord, so we also couldn't really get super involved, being an hour plus drive away. So in 2019, I actually kind of spiraled into depression and trying to work my way out of that. I basically went onto Google Maps and said, where were the closest churches to my house? And every couple of weeks, I took one of my children to one of those. And so went to quite a few churches, probably at least 5 to 10, until Ava and I stumbled. Oh, are we going in and out? Hard to tell. Ava and I stumbled upon New Vine. We live just across the train tracks. And then you all were just incredibly welcoming and invited us to dinner, of course. And free food is amazing. And so I texted Alan and Liam, my son, and said, we're going to stay for dinner. They said, free food, can we come? So of course, yes. And so we've been coming ever since, but we really want to thank you for your warm welcome. It was very authentic.
Now, you had said something about a postcard. What's the story behind that?
I swear that we had received a postcard, but all of you claimed that there were no postcards sent during that time frame.
Not in 2019.
So I don't know. It was the logo was in my brain, and so it felt very familiar.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I kept telling them, we sent a postcard right before we launched in 2016, but not in 2019. Unless you kept the junk mail. I mean, the postcard, not junk mail.
Who knows?
Unless you kept that postcard, and then 3 years later, the Lord showed it to you.
Yeah, anything is possible.
But amazing, right? I mean, okay, whether it be church near me or the postcard or whatever, God brought you. And I still remember that first Sunday when you guys showed up. And then I remember still you calling Alan and saying, hey, you want to come have dinner? And you showed up. And you brought your son, right? And you guys have been showing up ever since. So this is amazing, right? This is nothing that we could have planned. I don't think we bribed you. I don't think, but this is really a work of God, right? Like God leading you. I mean, you said you visited at least 5 or 6 different churches, right? But somehow the Lord led you here and you stayed, right? So hold that thought. There's more. There's a lot more from all of these folks. Okay, Sapna, I'm gonna go to you. Now, now you have a very unique story also about coming. Is it not on? Is it? Maybe Eric can help you. Yeah.
Me?
Oh, there we go.
Good. All right. So for me, I joined my current company in 2017, and then I was coming to the US on business trips. So, and that was my first time in the US. I had never come to the US. I was very happy in Asia. So, but then I was coming almost every other month, and I said, okay, I better find a church. And so I was praying to the Lord, Lord, please show me a church because I don't drive when I was on business trip. And so it had to be walking distance. And I was also praying to the Lord for another thing. So in my company, I had asked a few times to just check if there are other Christians. And everybody would look at me weirdly. I thought in the US is very strange. Nobody seems to be like, you want to go to church? Let me introduce you to so and so. Nothing. They would just say, not so sure what you're talking about. So I said, okay, never mind. This is a cultural difference. And so I'd been praying about that too. So I typed church near me, and so a few churches showed up. New Wine was one of them. And I checked out the beliefs. There's a list of what we believe in. And I said, oh, this looks great. And then I walked over. And the first person to welcome me was Margaret. I mean, she just came over and said, hello, where are you from? I said, I'm from Singapore. Where do you work? I said, I work in Google. And she said, my husband is from Singapore. He also works in Google. Let me get him. So she went and got Kelvin. So God answered multiple prayers together. Through Kelvin, I got to know that there were indeed a lot of Christians in Google, but they were just well hidden. So, yeah, so that's how I came to New One.
And that was back in 2018,
Yes,
right? When you were just here on business
Yes.
for 6 weeks at a time, going
Yeah.
back and forth between here and Singapore, and really sensing that you wanted to be part of a church while you were here, not knowing anyone, not really knowing any Christians, but the Lord used Google or Church Near Me to
Yeah.
to point you to New Vine,
Yeah.
and God answered your prayer.
Yeah, God
Right.
answered my prayers.
Not just
and
one, but both of them.
Both of them. And I think the community has been such a blessing for me. And I think later when I moved to the US, I realized God had brought me to this community so that I had the courage to move, because otherwise I don't think I would have moved by myself. I mean, I'm not that kind of a person. I like to stick to safe places. I don't like changes and so on. But he used this connection to New Wine to give me the strength and courage to move. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Amen. Thank you, Sapna. That's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to turn to Andrew and Quinn. They don't, I mean, it's, you, how shall I say, you guys inherited them. So they were part of the church planting team. So they didn't do Church Near Me, or they didn't, so they were part of the ones that you see from San Jose. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, that beginning part. But we will come, well, actually, during your 5 years here, there have been multiple life events that have happened, right? Would you share with us some of them, just to start off, Quinn or Andrew?
Yes, so I'm learning that God is actively working in our lives, and we get the privilege to be part of His plan to reach out to our neighborhood. So in September of 2014, about 6 months before joining the church, Andrew and I attended a birthing class. So we prayed before we attended the class, and we said, okay, God, show us a family that you want us to meet and to spend more time with. So, we came in, and then guess which couple was in front? So as the instructor asked the class to make introductions, we met Rosa and Hero. So God helped to connect us. We had lunch and dinner together on that same day, so we had like a double date, even before our babies arrived. So I think since that day, we kept in touch and then shared our lives together. And then our kids were born a few weeks apart. And then after Ruth was about 6 months, we joined part of the church plant. It was just amazing to see how God worked through I think it was like 1.5 years that the core team met together and pray and to see where God wants New Vine to be. I think as God was working in Rosa and Hero's lives, he led them to join even like a small group to learn more about Jesus. And Margaret, Calvin, Jack and Y, I think we had other groups just to that they were able to experience Jesus through like a true community. And God was, and then April of 2007, Rosa and Hero was baptized. So it was like just so wonderful to see God working in their lives and that we get to be part of the plan. Also we had opportunities to reach out to neighbors through Backyard Kids Club and Operation Christmas Child. For Backyard Kids Club, God brought our friends and kids from our neighborhood for like a 5-day of learning about different people who had encounters with Jesus from the Bible. And then with the Operation Christmas Child, God used just packing shoe boxes with toys, toiletries, school supplies to bring a friend who's from India to experience his love, generosity, and meaningful community. So I hope that one day she will come to know Jesus as her Savior. And it's all God's work, and we get to be part of that.
Great. Thank you, Quyen. We'll come back to you guys in a little bit. So, really, ordinary people, right, from different walks of life. But then I just want to touch upon the real faith aspect, where we really pray that our faith would really, that our faith would be growing in Jesus. You know, even though times may be tough, but also that we would be encouraging to one another. And Jenn, I know that in thinking about what to share, you had mentioned that you've seen some real faith here at New Vine Community Church. Can you share what you've seen, what you've experienced, and what the Lord has been teaching you?
Yeah, definitely. So the sermons and the fact that it kind of even jumps around from person to person really have spoken to me. And that's something that I haven't experienced at many churches. Also, I can just see in each of you that you are here and genuinely wanting to grow. Having joined Mom's Group and Soul Care, thank you, Ken. It's been really meaningful for me to grow here. And when I was talking to Douglas, I promised him I would cry, first of all.
Yeah, so just, yeah, exactly. You know, she's like, I'll share as long as it's okay that I cry. And I was like, absolutely, it's okay. We're used to tears because I cry all the time. So it's totally fine, Jenn.
Yeah. And Quyen promised me she might cry too, so.
Yeah, so it's okay. We'll all cry together,
Yeah.
okay? Yeah,
but-
we'll get some tissue from the back. It's not a
Yeah,
problem.
no, I got some. I'm good. So it just feels very genuine and authentic here. I mean, even a lot of my tears, it's about vulnerability, right? It's hard to share really real, authentic, genuine feelings. And I sense that with all of you. And I do sense a safety for that. And for me, my story with, what God's, trying to teach me is exactly about that vulnerability. It's about that losing of control. Stop bargaining with God to really let him write my story. Especially after having 2 children, I realized, oh man, I have zero control in this life. And that's really difficult. And, at work, I'm a director, I'm a manager, I manage lots of programs and teams and projects, and I'm good at that, and that's my comfort zone. But when it comes to faith, it's about losing control and letting God really take the reins.
Yeah, Jenn, I think that's it's so true for all of us that all of us want to, or at least pretend to want to be in control, and it's so hard to actually surrender, right? And I think as believers, that's a lesson that God teaches us is like, hey, you think you're in control, but you're not, right? God really is ultimately in control. And so I think that's an excellent example, and just even your vulnerability and your openness in sharing with us, all of you being willing to be up here with me and just sharing a bit of your story is so encouraging to all of us. And I think this is really what we try to cultivate, but also to model, is that, it's okay to not be okay. because we're all at times not okay. It's only because of Jesus that he not only makes us okay, but he makes us well, and that he only, only something that only he can do. So I really appreciate that that control piece. Now, Alan, I know that you know perhaps in the past you may have had some bad experiences with the church or with religion, and I had this permission from him, but I know that you're not a believer. I'm going to say yet. But why do you keep coming? Like, you're here every day. You're here more than some of us who are believers are here. So why do you keep coming, Alan?
I'm here because of love.
Say that again?
I'm here because of love.
Because of love. Love.
Jenn's faith and her family's faith is really a part of who they are. It's an important part of a lot of people's lives, but especially of their lives. And I really can't be a part of her life without being a part of this. And it's brought me so many wonderful things. You haven't met her family, but her family are some of the most wonderful people in the world. And I came here because Jenn said, here are more people that I think we should get to know. And I've met an entire community of people who are the most wonderful people in the world. I mean, I've really been humbled that I've gotten to be a part of this. And yeah, I mean, being here felt very natural from the very beginning. It felt very, welcoming. And I really feel like that's an important part of my life, my children's lives. And yeah.
Wow, thank you, Alan. I told Alan, I said, now that he shared it with us, I'm sure some of us will be praying for him. And I said, are you okay with that? And he was like, yeah, I'm okay with that. So I know he was like saying, I think a lot of people assumed that he was a believer, but no one really asked. But now that you've gone public, I think, we would love to continue to love you, but also to pray that God's love would touch your heart, and that you would really experience who he is. And so thank you for even sharing with us. And I think this is the wonderful thing about New Vine. You come as you are. You don't have to be a super Christian who's been in the faith for 50 years or 100 years or whatever. You come as you are. And I think, Alan, you're just a great example. Like, even though you may not believe, you still come because there's something that is attractive. And you said that it was love, right? And so that's what we want New Vine to be. We want New Vine to be a place where anyone can come. They don't have to be Christian, but they can come and experience the love of Jesus. They can experience a real faith. They can experience a meaningful community. And this is really what the church should be about. So, Alan, thank you for just sharing with us and for walking with us, allowing us to walk with you and your kids and your beautiful family. Yeah, so isn't that wonderful, right? That's so awesome. Okay, Sapna, I'm going to come to you. Now, Sapna, your family is spread across 3 different continents, right? You have a daughter who's working in Singapore, your husband Thomas and your younger daughter are in Auckland, and recently Roshan has joined you here in the States. Now, that must be very challenging to be spread across 3 different, not only countries or time zones, but continents, separated by oceans. How has your faith been strengthened? How have you dealt with all of this in the last few years? So share with us a little bit more about what you shared with me earlier.
Can you hear me? Okay. So when God asked me to move to the U.S., that was 2019, and I was. I don't say I obeyed him cheerfully. I obeyed him very reluctantly, but okay, Lord, because you say so. And my husband was very supportive. He said, "Yeah, I'll join you soon." But when that soon was not so clear, right? So I just stayed by myself here. I must say my small group has been super supportive, and it's like having a family here. Right? So so it continued. So I thought, okay, just a few months, and then Thomas should be able to come over. And then the pandemic hit, right? And my son Roshan had started military service in Singapore. That's mandatory. So, and we thought, oh yeah, 2 years will go very fast. And then when the pandemic started, God gave me the chance to go back to Auckland, and that's a miracle in itself, and maybe a story for another time. But soon after I got there, we realized that Roshan was struggling so much in the military service. In fact, he didn't tell us, and by the time we got to know, we realized so he was having panic attacks, anxiety. He was really struggling. So I kind of spend, my focus just changed to that. I just spent a lot of time praying with him. With him, in the sense you pray, he's not doing anything, right? So because he was really struggling. So then in October of last year, I had to come back to the US because my visa needed a change. So I came back. So then I started thinking, this child is in Singapore, the borders are closed. Auckland, the borders, in New Zealand, the borders are closed. What am I doing here so far off? So I kind of started talking to God. God, I pray, Lord, that you give me a job somewhere there. And, I came here, all that you wanted me to do here, maybe it is kind of done. It's like, I want to go back. So I also started looking at which divisions had offices in that part of the world. But I didn't do anything about it. I just, was praying and looking at stuff, but I had no peace, so I just continued. And I spent a lot of time praying over Roshan and so on. Then around November time frame, I think, Roshan said, I want to apply in the UCs here. UCs and the CS, right, over here. I'm thinking this kid has to focus on getting out of military service, not like adding stuff to what he's already going through. So I kind of said, by the way, he already had admission to the University of Auckland because he studied his final high school there. So he already had admission there. I'm thinking that's the best thing to do, right? You just go there and study. Your sisters, they're your fathers. And I'm thinking I will go, right? So that was my thinking. But he said, no, I want to apply. So my husband and I said, okay, just go ahead. Now, this is just a few weeks before the deadline for applications, right? So he hadn't, there's no essay written, nothing. So we were just scrambling, right? Scrambling to find out what needs to be done. Then a couple of friends told me that these are things you do months before, not, few weeks before. So then I thought, okay, if he wants to, let him try. We don't want to add to his tension and pressure, right? So he said, okay, go ahead. And he was struggling to even write an essay. So, and we saw all of that, and we were like, okay, just go through the process. So, because you want to. So, but what he would do is every application when he submits after those essays, he would pray intensely and he would submit. So we said, okay, fine. You have admission. So don't worry. We kept thinking he won't get it, right? So don't worry, you have admission there. And we said, focus on getting out of this. And long story short, when the results came, he had admission to UC Davis, UC Santa Cruz, San Francisco State University. And then in SJSU, he was, I think, waitlisted. So, but he talked to SJSU and they said, because they were not used to his Singapore, the way of grading or whatever. So then they said, okay, you can join us also if you like. So finally, he decided to join SJSU. And he came over. I still can't imagine that he actually got admission and came over after doing things like this.
At the last minute.
At the last minute, and he was struggling to write an essay. I think he can tell you. But it's really God who brought him here. So that's really what happened. There's one more thing on the house I wanted to.
Yes, please go ahead. I remember praying for you because you were very specific when you looked for housing. You wanted an in-unit washer and dryer for your laundry. And we said, let's pray for that, right? Very specific.
Yeah, so in 2019 when we came, like Douglas said, I wanted in-unit washer dryer. And I was very surprised most of the apartments didn't have that. It was common, right? I'm not used to that. So I kept telling my husband, no, I want that, I really want that. So it was very difficult to find something within our budget. We finally found a very tiny place with in-unit washer dryer. And so we kind of paid the deposit for that. And then the next day, Monday, I think, we found this place, where I currently am. This was like perfect. It had everything plus a dishwasher, right? So it was like, wow, perfect. But they had this condition that you had to pay the money by 2 p.m. that day, something like that. So we had only a couple of hours, and we didn't have a local bank account, so there was no way to pay them in cash. So then we contacted Douglas, and Douglas was, I think, really hats off to him. We are almost like strangers. He, without hesitation, he gave us a couple of $1,000 to pay, without knowing
She
if
was
I
gonna
would
pay me back, so don't think it was for free, okay? Don't get any wrong ideas.
Okay, so yeah, thanks.
And she did pay
Douglas.
me back.
So yeah, so we got that house, and what's amazing is when Roshan got admission in SJSU, a few weeks ago, we went to see the place, and it's an in-city campus, right? So parking, driving there, okay, all that is not there yet. So we looked for public transport, and the amazing thing is the place which God gave us, just outside that place, 2 minutes, is the bus stop. It's a straight bus to SJSU. So it's like 2 years ago, God already knew that this kid is coming here and he needs public transport. And there is one rapid bus, and that is a few minutes down the road. So 9 stops, he gets to college. So I wanted to just say that 2 things: God's ways are higher than ours. I was praying that I would go there or Thomas would come here, but God had another plan, that He was bringing Roshan here. And the other one is God is in the future. He already knew 2 years ago that this kid is coming, and He gave me a house exactly suitable and everything. So God is great.
That's amazing, right? Right on the bus line, 9 stops away, direct to San Jose State. You didn't know Roshan was going to be here 2 years ago. You thought he was going to be in Auckland.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
God knew he was going to be here 2 years ago,
Yes.
right? So you said one thing as you've grown in your faith is that God's ways are higher than our ways. You thought you would be back in Auckland because it makes sense, right? Roshan already got accepted. Your daughter's there, your husband's there. Why would you be all the way here in Mountain View or Sunnyvale?
Right.
God's ways are higher than our ways. And then God's in the future. He knows exactly what's going to happen 2 years from now. Just like He knew when you signed that lease on your place that Roshan would be here 2 years bus, and that the bus would be right there,
Right there. Yeah,
Amazing.
it's amazing. Just outside.
just outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, brothers and sisters, I feel like this is just so encouraging. It's an example of real faith in action, right? Where we think we know, but we actually don't know. But then we're reminded that God is ultimately in control, and that His ways are so much higher than ours. And even the minute detail, the dishwasher, which you didn't pray for,
Yes.
the washer and dryer, which we did pray for, right? And even the bus stop and the rapid bus that you didn't know about,
Yes.
right? Amazing, right? So thank you, Sapna, for sharing with us. Okay, I need to turn to Andrew and Quinn because we haven't talked much to you guys. I know that the phrase meaningful community stands out for you guys. Can you share with us a little about that? Andrew, I know that the last couple of years have been quite challenging in your workplace. How has the Lord brought you through that time?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I really have appreciated the time I've spent in Kelvin and Margaret's small group. Excuse me, because that was really my lifeline during the time that I had. I just had a very intense period between about 2018 and really the beginning of this year. I've actually changed jobs as a result of it. But yeah, just being able to every Friday to go to a place where I could get sort of a space to talk to people who cared about me, who would listen. Sorry, I took so long. I at least try and make it entertaining.
You're very entertaining,
I try.
Andrew.
But yeah, I just wanted. It's just been a real appreciate. It's really been something that's been very meaningful to me to have that, because it was just like we had Priscilla was waking up a lot during the nights. I was working. There was a period where pre-pandemic, I basically came home after the kids were in bed, and then we came into the pandemic, and it was I would kind of stop working right as they were going to bed and try and help get them into bed. So there just wasn't a lot of other stuff in my life other than work, and so that was sort of like the one safety valve of just being able to get away from it, to get a little bit refocused back on God, and to just to share going through that experience.
Thank you, Andrew. Quyen, how about for you?
So I believe that God gave us the gift of community so that we can experience a deep and rich level of his love for us and others. So in the different life stages, Andrew and I joined small groups where we experienced meaningful community. When New Vine started, I think Ruth was about like 2 years old. So we hosted a small group in our home so that we can meet together to share our life's joys and challenges, reading the Bible, and pray together. We carried each other's burdens. When one lost a job or lost a loved one, we grieved with each other. When one got a new job or saw how God provided each steps, we praised and celebrated together. And then when Andrew and I went through some hard times with little sleep, with the second baby, Randy and Winnie would meet at our home for a short season to mentor us in our marriage, to help us work on our family's mission statement, and to pray for us. They cared for us. And then in June of 2019, during the pandemic, I remember that I wanted to go to the event with the church to pray and worship that day. But I wasn't able to go. Because we were sheltering in place, and with 2 kids and Andrew was working, it affected me that day, and then we were under so much stress. So I'm an extrovert, and I like to be around people, but when that happened, it was it was too much. I just told the girls like to clean up, and then they didn't clean up. So then I said, okay, I've had it. So then I went into my space where I cry out to the Lord. I was like, Lord, I cannot do this anymore because it's just too much. And so I prayed, and then Andrew came out for lunch, and then he asked what's wrong, and I told him, I said, I need to take a break. I need to get away. So he said, okay, after lunch, you could have till dinner time. I was like, okay, really? I said, it was like my ticket out of the house because it was during the pandemic. I ate real quick. I got my mask, my purse, and I just got out of there. And then I was just walking and crying and talking to God. I said, God, why am I feeling this? Like, what is going on? And then I was praying, and I said, Lord, you know my heart. Like, I wanted to do this. I mean, I would probably didn't want the girls with me to do the praise and worship, but I want to do that. And so I just messaged Quyen and Winnie, and I said, could you please pray for me? Because right now I'm having a hard time. And so Quyen said, okay, can you talk? And I said, yes. So I called her, and then she listened to me, and then she just let me, she heard what I was sharing with her from my heart. And then she said, yeah, Quyen, it is hard. It is hard for everybody, especially during this pandemic. And she said, Quyen, it looks like God's hearing your heart, and he knows what you would like to do. And she said, you need to grieve over the lost opportunity. And I was like, I don't even know how to grieve over a lost one. So how can I learn how to grieve over like a lost opportunity? So after she heard me and she prayed for me, and I was like, oh Lord, thank you for bringing Quyen and Winnie just to like help me process what I was going through, because I couldn't do it alone. So he brought Quyen and Winnie, and I just feel like without close community, meaningful community, people that you could pour your heart out to, then it's so much better. Even though it's hard, it's like you don't want to go through any of this alone. It could be too much for someone to handle that.
Thank you, Quyen.
Sorry, I said I was gonna cry, but yeah.
Yeah, we're in it together. But thank you for being so real and just really, it's okay, right? And so, really, this meaningful community is really what God's intention is. I think a lot of times I realize that as a church community, we sometimes take this sense of community for granted. I say that because there are a lot of people who I've met that they don't have this community. They don't have this richness where we can be real, where we can pray for one another, where we can text someone and immediately, have a phone call or a conversation or people really praying. And so as believers, we are so blessed to have this community. And it's only because of what Jesus has done for us. It's only because him uniting us. And so I don't know, Jenn or Alan, do you have anything else to add about meaningful community or about anything else?
One thing I would say is Andrew and Quyen are, I think, a really big part of our community here. Quyen, during the pandemic, she passed on that community. She invited me out with the kids because I did a lot of taking care of the kids the last few years during the pandemic. And she would say, "Come out with me. We'll go to this park. We'll go to this petting zoo." And it was just, we weren't talking really to anybody, not even Jen's family. We were talking to them. We just weren't seeing them in person. And so, it's something that builds on itself and passes around to all of us.
That's great. That's wonderful. Okay, do any of us have anything else that I may have missed that you had wanted to share? No, Jenn and Alan, you're good. Sapna, yes.
I just want to say thanks to all those who really helped me when I first came here and through those months. I never kind of struggled so much just because of you guys. So thanks to the small group. I remember I had pain on my hands, and one day during dinner time, Jessica, I didn't know it was Jessica, then she came and said, "Can I see your hands?" And I'm like, "A total stranger, why do you want to see my hands?" She said, "Oh, you know what, she's in this field. This is what is wrong with the hand. This is what you need to do." She took a photograph of what I needed to purchase from the doctor. I thought, wow, this church is so awesome. They hardly know me, but they're so willing to help and so willing to care. Yeah.
Praise God. Praise God.
Thanks.
Andrew and Quyen, anything else that you want to share with your church family? Sure, go ahead.
Hey, one other thing that was sort of happened around the same time as we were starting the New Vine was the Life of Christ class. I just want to give a quick plug for that. Both for the real faith and also for meaningful community. It was a great way to kind of be with other believers and to learn more about God. And I think I would say the enthusiasm kind of builds, right? Because if everyone's excited together, learning about the Bible and learning about Jesus and what he did and how these things connect together, I think it can also encourage your faith as well. So when it shows up again, give it a try.
Life of Christ plug. All right, great. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for sharing with us. Andrew, Quyen, Sapna, Jenn, and Alan. We really appreciate, again, your openness, your honesty, and just sharing some of the stories that God has been doing in your lives. So thank you again. Let's give them all a big hand. And I'm just going to wrap up a little bit. Don't worry, I'm not going to preach a sermon. I just have a few closing thoughts. Even as I hear all these testimonies of God at work in your lives, we're so blessed. We are so blessed to be hearing real life things, and I know sometimes it's a little bit scary, it's a little bit intimidating, and you don't have to share like this, but I hope and pray that there is someone, at least one person, who you can share with if you're going through a difficult time. We have Table Talk, and people, you guys all share through Table Talk. But if you're going through a struggle, do know that you're not meant to carry that burden on your own. God has given us a church community, a church family to do life with. You know, God is working in our lives, even when sometimes we don't realize it, when we don't know it. He's continuing to write that story. And similarly here at New Vine, he's writing the story of New Vine as a church. You know, I'm just going to flash up one verse, Philippians 1, verse 6. Paul writes, I am sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. That the Lord who began a good work in you and me will continue that good work until completion. The question really is, are we willing to let him write our story? Are we willing to surrender? Are we willing to let go of our control and to let him write the story until the day of completion? You know, we're not meant to keep the story of God's work that he has done in our lives to ourselves. We're meant to share it with others. We're meant to testify. We are meant to share the love of Jesus with those around us. And in the next couple of weeks, I want to encourage you to come out to our missions conference, because that's really what it's all about, is sharing the love of Jesus, not just keeping it to ourselves, but sharing it with our neighbors, with our classmates, with our schoolmates, or friends, colleagues, even to the ends of the earth. So as we close in song, as we close and celebrate and declare who God is, I want to ask you, what story is God writing in your life today? Will you let him continue to write the story that God intends for your life? And then after we close in song, I'm going to ask Pastor Ted to come up and close us in prayer, to bless us as a New Vine church community, to really ask the Lord to take us into the next 5 years and even beyond as a church that exalts Jesus. Let's all stand as we worship together.